And then you will get to preference your teams, and your TAs will like make sure that they know what you want to do, what team you want to be a part of. And most of the time you do get your like first preference. There's like, or like you always get your either like first or second choice. So you definitely like won't be like super disappointed. And as for humanities projects, just because like I'm a part of one, there's definitely options. Like absolutely every year there's at least like one humanities project. I think this year there's actually more than one. So yeah, there's a lot that is available to you. So you won't feel boxed in.
I don't think we have anyone here from Team Lemma, but that is one of our current math projects. There was a question about math research. They are doing a really cool math-based project looking at how extremism spreads on Reddit with some various algorithms. So you can look at our website to check that out. I wonder, Ria, can you talk about how pre-med students balance the course load with research and required classes?
Sure. I think that's a really great question. Definitely something I was worried about coming into Gemstone, but it's totally manageable. And besides the part of balancing, it's like a really great thing to put on your resume and to talk about. I'm in the middle of that process right now, and it's one of the major things I end up talking about in interviews and in essays. So it's definitely a great addition to your undergraduate career. A lot of students in Gemstone are pre-med, and a lot of the classes you take are completely manageable with your pre-med classes. It's just like any adjustment to college. You just have to learn how to balance your workload, but this definitely won't overwhelm you. I actually found that it made a lot of my science classes easier because I was like putting a lot of the stuff I learned in class contextually into my research. And you don't even have to do that if you're interested in something outside of your major, just something that I experienced in the program.
There's a question on here to ask, how is Gemstone different from a research internship? Do one or more of you want to talk about how you can compare those experiences? I know, Ria, you've done both.
Right. Yeah, I was waiting to see if somebody else wanted to share, but I'm happy to share mine as well. I think the main difference is just ownership of your project. You get to develop your own project, and if you don't like where it's going, you can change the direction. And you have a huge, actually, you have the say in what you're conducting your research on, with the guidance of your mentor, of course. And I think that's the main difference. When I worked my research internship, I kind of picked up a project that was already happening in that lab. And that's usually how a lot of internship goes until you've been there for a couple years. But right from the get-go here, you develop your project and conduct it. So that's what makes it a little more unique.
And on a team, right? There's a question I think any of you could answer really well. Can you share a little bit about the most stressful and exciting parts of being in Gemstone? And is there anything you would change if you could go back? Go ahead, Mina.
I'd say the most exciting part is like team formation and finding out who your team is, and you know, like finally, after like a full year of going through like the voting process and developing project sheets, you like finally get to you know, dive headfirst into creating your project and seeing where that goes and really like fleshing it out. And I also think that is like the most stressful part too, because you go through a lot of like changes depending on your project, and a lot of feedback, and but it's like still really rewarding and fun at the same time. So yeah, that's what I would say.
There's some questions about how much time the research takes up during the week and what that looks like. Does someone want to talk a little bit about how you engage with your Gemstone research over the course of your time at Maryland?
My team meets up with my mentor once every 2 weeks. So we have a bi-weekly meeting. but that's not enough for us. So we usually have our own team meeting in between. So for like 1 to 2 hours every week. And right now we're in the process of publishing an article for multiple journals. So right now we're busier than usual because we are constantly editing and figuring how we can like improve the paper. So it is definitely a good amount of work.
I can also speak to that a little bit. So I think it really does depend kind of on what your project is about. So for example, my team right now is doing a lot of data collection and work in the lab. So during this semester and last semester, it definitely does take up a little bit more work. And especially in our situation right now is not the entire team is able to go into the lab. But so that usually ends up taking more time than it does in other semesters. So that's also one of the nice things is you do kind of get a gradient. So in certain phases of your testing and certain phases of your project will take less time than others. So you can kind of figure out how to schedule your workload around that.
Olivia, I wonder if you could add on, there's been a question about how folks have pivoted their research. Do you want to talk a little bit about what your team has done this year since your plan changed?
Yeah, I can talk about that. So in terms of just the question in general of like, can your research change? It definitely does. And I want to say that the majority of teams from their inception freshman year to their final thesis have a good amount of change in what their project is, usually either based on things they discover while doing their research or based on like, for example, outside conditions. Like for us, we had COVID. And so that kind of led to restrictions for us on how many members of our team were able to get into the lab. And so in order to combat that, we've started doing a lot of work as well with simulation research. So that's kind of helped us to like offset that loss of time. But outside of like even COVID restrictions, I do know that a lot of teams have managed to like change or redirect their research as time goes on. So that's, if you don't necessarily love the direction it's going in the beginning, you are working on a team and you can kind of help guide your research to something that you find to be better or more interesting.
There's a question about knowing what you know now about Gemstone, would you still have chosen Gemstone when you were an incoming student? Why or why not?
I would say yes, because just compared to what I know about the other LLPs, and I have like friends in all the different ones, and just like what I've heard from their experiences, I definitely think that being a part of Gemstone is like really rewarding in so many different ways, just in terms of like building faculty relationships, having like full independence over a project, getting to like develop writing, communication skills, research skills. And there's just like a lot that you gain personally and professionally that you can like use going forward in your career and with internships. So yeah, I think you get a lot from this program that you probably wouldn't otherwise. So I would still choose Gemstone.
This ties into the next question. You mentioned the mentoring. There's a question about how have you built connections with faculty and how has this helped pursuing internships, employment, or graduate school? And also, I don't know if any of you have participated in AMP, the Alumni Mentor and Partner Program, but maybe you could speak to that as well.
I can talk about that a little bit. Throughout Gemstone, I've been connected to multiple alumni who are doctors or students in medical school. And one of the benefits, or there's a lot of benefits to that, but the few that I've really found useful is not only getting to talk to them about their experiences and like how Gemstone kind of played into them getting into medical school, but when you get to that stage of professional school and you apply, you can literally just drop their name and that's a tie to the school. And that's not just a medical school thing, that's like a grad school thing, vet school, basically any type of post-bac education. Having those connections is really invaluable. As Dr. Skendel mentioned, we do have an AMP program, which is just pairing you with an alumni. And I get paired with all kinds of alumni all the time, not usually doctors through that program either, but the things that I learned from them are super useful. I got paired with like a PhD student who would practice interviews with me so that I could like answer confidently, which I think is something that's so unique to our program, as our alumni are so tight with our students and give you a lot of advice and take a lot of time out of their day to do that.
I can add to that since I did AMP just last semester, but I was paired with an alumni who went to law school, and she's been really helpful, and we still talk and like maintain that relationship. And she's like offered me like a position to shadow at the company she works at. So, and she's now like a reference for when I apply to internships. So it is like really helpful, and you do have like a lot of opportunities within your project and outside of your project to, you know, build those relationships with faculty.
Ria, as president of GLC, there are several questions in here about leadership opportunities, mentoring, and engagement. Do you want to talk about those?
Yeah, actually, that was kind of my answer to the question of like, would you still be in Gemstone now? And I think leadership is probably one of the big reasons I'd say yes. I never really knew about those opportunities coming into Gemstone, but there's like a huge network of being a leader in here that like anybody who wants to be involved can. As Dr. Skendel mentioned, I'm the president of the Leadership Council. So that basically is just managing all the TAs, Connect mentors, as well as like the AMP program, our diversity, equity, and inclusion, and our programming board. So basically wherever you are interested, you can find a way to be involved as a leader. And I think that's one of the ways you can get the most out of Gemstone, is not only participating, but being actively involved. So, I mean, if anyone has any extra questions about what that might look like, feel free to ask in the chat. I'll try to respond with text so we don't, I don't know, depending on what the question is, I guess.
All of you actually are involved in a lot of ways around campus. Do you want to answer the question? There's a question about, does the time commitment of your Gemstone research project prevent you from pursuing external opportunities or other experiences?
I can go. I have an on-campus job at STAMP, which is the Student Activity Center. I also have an internship off at Prince George's Hospital Center, and I'm also a peer educator for the health promotions and wellness services at the University Health Center. On top of that, I'm double majoring in psychology. So it's definitely doable if you have the motivation and passion for all of the activities that you want to pursue.
There's a question about what makes Gemstone unique. I can think of lots of reasons, but I think folks would rather hear from our current students. Do you want to share some observations on what makes Gemstone a unique part of your Maryland experience?
Oh, sorry, go.
Okay, well, I think Ria already touched on this actually. I was just going to repeat it, but definitely like ownership and that independence that you get from, you know, having your own project and working with a team. You seriously don't really get that in any other LLP. I think it's like the most unique part of Gemstone. It's like, you're not just going to get that experience like handed to you. And I think that it's like a really great way to be able to build a research experience, and you don't need prior experience before coming into Gemstone. Like, this is the program that helps you build that for the future. So.
There's a couple questions I'm trying to pull together a little bit about the potential for Gemstone projects to potentially turn into business opportunities or connections with some business or entrepreneurship aspect. Anjali or Olivia, I think both of your projects have sort of an angle down that path. Do you want to talk a little bit about what that looks like for your teams?
I can talk. So for my team, we are definitely looking at getting some research published. And that would all, and at the time, because of restrictions, we're not currently looking at getting patents, but I do know that teams in the past have gotten patents and have had their research and their work continue to be used and continue to build on it past graduation. And I do know, in fact, that like some students do continue to do work on similar topics as they go into graduate school or continue to do research outside of Gemstone. So this is kind of a great building block if that's something that you're interested in.
I can add to that. So many teams, even after graduation, do continue to pursue publication of their senior theses or continue to their research in a graduate level setting. Additionally, there's also many freshman teams, when they're forming their teams or proposing projects, do end up proposing projects that are continuations of previous teams' work. So that is always an option for people who are unsure if they want to propose a topic in the team formation process or want to continue something that has been done in the past.
There's a question about how do you sort of balance the Gemstone involvement with your major and other experiences? I know because I was just looking at some of your majors and minors that many of you are pursuing double degrees, double majors, majors and minors. How do you balance all of that with your Gemstone commitments and all of the other things that you do on campus?
I can talk to that. So I'm majoring in biology and environmental science, and the project that I'm working on is primarily a material science-based project. So you can definitely do projects on things that are not necessarily in your major or specifically in your line of work, but as long as it's something that you find interesting and are passionate about learning more about, you can find ways to balance that. And additionally, it's really kind of a time management thing. So you can definitely do double major and participate in extracurriculars as well as still do Gemstone. For example, I'm a member of the SGA and I'm on our sustainability committee on campus. I also am doing research with a professor, and I even in the past have had time to do things like intramural sports or other things like that. So it does take you time, but as long as you care about the things that you're interested in, you can take time and make sure that everything kind of balances out in the end.
There are several questions about the living component of Gemstone and the experience in Ellicott Hall and how people sort of live with folks in the first year and then continue on living with Gemstone people as they move through. Does someone want to talk a little bit about the residential component of Gemstone?
I can speak to that. So most of the Gemstone freshmen do live in Ellicott Hall, although I believe you are not 100% required to live there. It is very fun and a great way to get close to the people that you'll be working with in the future, especially as freshman year is very focused on the team formation aspect. I, in fact, am still friends with most of the people in Gemstone. In fact, Olivia is actually my roommate, so she's in a different room right now. So I can definitely attest to the fact that being in this living learning program and living with the people in this program will definitely help you make friends really quickly and really easily.
Many of you are not engineering students. So there's actually a question about how do students who are not in engineering do in Gemstone. Do you want to reflect on that experience a little bit?
I see a question that says like many of these projects seem extremely technical. And I think that might have been the question you were reading. And I'm kind of laughing at that because I thought the same thing. And one of the great things about Gemstone is you're kind of learning the whole time. There's still parts of my research that I think are very technical. And my research is actually kind of an engineering heavy project, not really what I expected, but definitely something new and something really interesting. So I don't think struggle is the right word, but you will be learning a lot, which is something you should kind of be expecting from any LLP. But it's not a very engineering dominant program anymore. I think it's a very diverse program. So don't be intimidated if you're not engineering.
Go ahead, Mina.
Oh yeah, I was gonna add that I don't know anything about engineering, physics, velocity, whatever it is. And I've definitely not struggled in this program at all. It really just depends on what project you're in and like who you work with. And even if you are on an engineering project, that doesn't mean like every aspect of your project is going to be like making robots or something. There's always different parts of every project that is going to be, more creative or writing focused or financial. So there's always things that people of different backgrounds and studies can have ownership of, and that's why it's a really interdisciplinary program. So yeah.
I'm going to try and combine two questions. There's a question about the support that you get and guidance from peers and teachers, and also a question of how have you used resources during the program to help get over obstacles or bumps. So kind of combining two to allow you all to respond.
Okay, on the topic of using like resources to get over obstacles, I'll say that our team calls on Dr. Skendel a lot to come and help us out like all the time. I'm constantly emailing her and she's super helpful. So whenever your team is like going through a rough patch, whether it's like with your members or your project, like you have all the staff members kind of like at your aid who are always like so willing and ready to hop on a call with you and just like hear you out and spend like an hour of their time like really helping you flesh out your ideas. So yeah, I would say like there's a lot of resources available to you if you're ever experiencing problems, and they're all very helpful.
Kind of more generally, going off of Mina, I echo everything she says because we call on Dr. Skendel a lot too. But just more generally with your time at the university, one thing that they do that probably saved me in my freshman year are grade checks, GPA checks. And if you fall below a certain minimum, they reach out to you and they meet with you. And I actually got a lot of the resources from that, kind of reaching out to me first, because Lord knows me as a freshman would not have reached out for help, but they reach out to you, which I think is something that's really unique with a smaller program. So definitely something that helped me get back on track with my adjustment in freshman year.
There's a question that I'm really excited to hear the answer to also about what Gemstone course did you consider to be the best or most useful during your time in Gemstone, and maybe what you've learned from that?
I'll say that I really enjoyed GEMS 104 and the TA discussions when I did it last year as a student. And just because like you're in a small group and you go through a lot of things like ethical research and like different issues someone could face when doing research, and just like being able to have those discussions with like a really diverse group of people that like think different things, and you also go through things like like making posters for your project sheet, and it's really useful but in a really fun way. Like I really enjoyed GEMS 104. So yeah.
And now you're TAing for it this semester. There's a question about grading and evaluation. Do y'all want to talk about what that looks like in Gemstone?
Oh, I thought Dr. Lovell unmuted, but I don't think so.
I did, but not to answer that question. I don't take the classes. I only teach them. So.
I would consider them more evaluation heavy. There are no formal tests in Gemstone, and for your first 2 years, the classes you take are more based on like participation, contribution, and then like short reflections. And then when your team is first formed, like a few papers along the way. But once you really get into like the meat of your team research, it's all evaluation based. It's just how well you work with your team, how much you contribute to research and like your team meetings, but definitely not test heavy for sure.
Dr. Lovell, did you want to share some thoughts?
No, sorry. I thought there was a lull there, so I was going to encourage somebody to answer that question about grading. I didn't want to say that the early coursework is easy A's because it isn't, but it's not like memorizing a bunch of stuff and taking exams and doing all of that kind of stuff. It's really sort of process and procedural. You're there doing the work to help form yourselves into research teams. You're going to want to do the work. It's fun and it's what gets you on the team that you want to be on. So we find the students, they put an enormous amount of effort into doing the, sort of background research, talking to each other, forming ideas, coming together. And, they get graded on how well they participate in that. So really, I don't think people stress too much about the grades in the freshman and sophomore level Gemstone courses. You have courses in your other major that you're probably going to worry, in your actual major, that you're probably going to worry more about than the grade you get here. The more important thing here is students worry about which team they get on. Are they going to be spending 3 years doing research that they really want to do? But the great part about our program is that they're driving the bus for most of that. So if you want a team to do something really cool, then make a team that does something really cool. And it's really as simple as that.
There is a question about do you spend time with your team outside of doing research, and a question about how you might describe the environment of Gemstone. Someone want to talk a little bit about what that looks like? Bria, I might direct that to you again because of your leadership role in the fact that you're a senior.
Yeah, I think a lot of our team bonding really came at the beginning when we were first formed, just because it's really difficult sometimes to work in a large group of 12 people. So getting to know each other is really important, and kind of understanding how we all work is something we did a lot when we were first formed. A lot of it was guided by GEMS 202. So you have to take that class anyways. And we do a lot of like very cool team building activities, some research based, some just purely social, which I think is a good mix. So it's not like always work all the time, but kind of a little fun in between. What we used to do is like go to a challenge course at Epley. Sadly, our current sophomores couldn't do that due to COVID, but hopefully by the time you guys become sophomores, fingers crossed, you'll be able to do the Epley course. They're kind of silly, but they're really fun. So I hope you guys do get to experience that. But I know like now as we've kind of shifted a little more to like finishing our project, it's become a lot more work heavy. But I think a lot of my friendships from Gemstone came from my research team. I would consider like a lot of them to be some of my best friends now, and hopefully we'll stay in touch after graduation, but you never know.
There are many teams that do reunions often, so I imagine you all will stay in touch. I'll answer this quick question about study abroad. Because of COVID, there hasn't been a lot of opportunity to do that currently, but certainly students do study abroad for a semester, winter or summer. It is part of the built into the curriculum with lots of opportunities to do that. And now with all of the enhanced opportunities to connect virtually, that doesn't even impact pieces as much as it did before. There's a question about what are some of the downsides of Gemstone and how do students overcome them? And y'all, please be honest. We are always open to feedback.
I think some of the downsides can be that some of the assignments you get feel a little corny. I guess the main thing is like sometimes like especially in your beginning courses, you might get just like some assignment or some group work that it kind of just feels like you know, something you would do in middle school. That sounds really mean, but it's just like some corny stuff, but it's like still really fun and like nice. I would say another downside would be like there can be like pretty stressful moments in Gemstone that don't really have anything to do with the program itself. Like when it comes to, you know, different members on your team, like maybe someone is not participating as much as they would, or maybe you have like someone who unexpectedly like wants to drop the team. And things like that can be like downsides, but I think like, again, there's always like a silver lining and something to learn from those types of situations. So yeah, I wouldn't say there's too much that I think is bad, but yeah.
Thank you, Mina. We want to be honest about the experiences, both the positives and some of the challenges. Dr. Lovell, were you going to weigh in?
Yeah, just to say that, you know, if you're working on a team of 10 people, you know, they're usually pretty, well, first off, they're all bright and they're strong-willed and they have their own ideas and opinions. And of course, you have a faculty mentor, and, you know, if I can speak for them, I'll say they're sort of well known for being opinionated, occasionally bright. And you know, that's a dozen people that kind of have to find a harmonious way to coexist and work on a pretty hard research project. And so you can imagine there's a dynamic there in the group, and it doesn't always go swimmingly. But many of you have been in clubs or on sports teams or whatever. You've experienced this already. You get 12 people chasing the same goal, and they don't always have exactly the same idea as to how to get there. And you know, there can be tension along the way, and you learn a lot about group dynamics and how to function as a team and how to hear each other and how to get your ideas expressed, and not allow yourself to be squelched. So I actually think that's really one of the strengths of the program. We talk a lot about it being research, but we try very hard never to say the word research without also focusing on the fact that it's team-based research. And even if you never do research again the rest of your life, you will work on teams for most of the rest of your life. And this is a really good sort of incubator for learning about how that works.
And I can talk about that a little from the student side of it. So for my team, we're actually one of the largest teams in Gemstone currently. We have 14 members on our team. And so we've definitely had to talk to Dr. Skendel about kind of how to make sure with that many people that everyone's doing an equal share of work. There was definitely a little bit of an issue with that in the beginning stages of our project, because some people were more knowledgeable about the subject based on their major or based on their prior research experience than others. And they ended up doing a lot of the legwork in the beginning, which wasn't fair. So we ended up having to form like a hierarchy within our team. So we now have broken into sub-teams where we have sub-team leaders. And that's kind of helped us to kind of share the work more evenly and make sure that everyone is participating on our team. So that's kind of one of the great things that Gemstone does teach you, is it's a really great way to learn how to like work collaboratively with a bunch of different people.
There's a lot of questions about how is Gemstone compare to the other honors programs? I think something really exciting about the Honors College at the University of Maryland is that there are 6 outstanding programs that offer students wonderful opportunities to learn and grow in smaller communities and also in the larger honors community. So all of them are wonderful and fantastic opportunities for you all. Gemstone, I think, is unique in lots of ways. We're one of the oldest programs. We are very competitive for med school students, so I will not compare to another program, but I will let you all know that we have almost a direct pipeline to the University of Maryland School of Medicine. Every time I look at the white coat ceremony pamphlet, I recognize about 10 of the 100 names as Gemstone students. The students right now I've been in touch with recently that are alumni of Gemstone are doing MD, PhD programs at Harvard, MIT, Vanderbilt, Duke. Students are right now at Hopkins, at Michigan, at Maryland, at Virginia. So lots of different wonderful medical schools and Harvard Law School. So Gemstone students are very successful after graduation in both industry and graduate and professional school. So we do our best to help set you up for success. And then We're just about to wrap up, so I would love to kind of go through our panelists, each of you to sort of share your favorite memory and experience in Gemstone, perhaps as we wrap up this evening. And so we can maybe start with Ria and then go from there.
That was a very loaded question. I have a lot of favorite memories, but I think probably like the most salient Gemstone memory I have is when 25 people wanted to be on the project sheet that me and my friends wrote. I think that was just like it felt super good that like that many people were interested. And a lot of people get that feeling. So it's not like a unique memory that I had. Everyone kind of experiences that kind of happiness when other people are interested in the same thing. But that was my favorite part about Gemstone.
Anjali, I see you next. Do you want to go?
I would say that my favorite part or memory of Gemstone would definitely be when my team first finished our literature review in sophomore year. I think it was sophomore year fall. It was so satisfying to like finally like go sift through all this information, put everything together as a team, and know that we were finally on track exactly where we wanted to be on our project, especially because sophomore year is a lot about like formulating your project, your research question, and it was great to see all of our work come to fruition.
Olivia?
This is a hard question. I think I have a lot of really great memories from Gemstone. I think especially in my freshman year, I really loved living in Ellicott with all the other members of my program because it just made, for me at least, it made coming to a larger school feel smaller because there were all these people that I knew and all these people I took a class with at least once a week, and we would all walk over the entire first 4 floors of the building, would all leave and walk over to our one class together. So that was always like a really fun experience and kind of helped me to feel more connected to like a larger group of people and kind of feel like I had my own little group that I knew when I first started out as a freshman.
Mina?
It's basically the same thing. Just genuinely my favorite part of Gemstone was my freshman year. Everyone would kind of hang out in the Gem Suite and do their homework and just like talk for hours and hours and hours, and like that just really helped build a community, and I made a lot of friends that way. And yeah, that was just really fun. Definitely my favorite part of Gemstone, and I'm still like friends with all those people now. So
Yubin?
My favorite memories were also from freshman year when things were back in person. I really enjoyed my GEMS 104 class. That's where I built a lot of friendships, and I still keep in touch with the TA that I had for the class. So, and we would like go out to eat together, walk to class together, take class outside because it was in the spring. So yeah, it was really nice.
Thank you. Let me see, Dr. Lovell, do you have any concluding thoughts you want to share as we're about to wrap up?
Yeah, I guess we're just about done here. First, I wanted to thank everybody for giving me some typing practice. I was just grinding away like a fiend over here and couldn't keep up with all the questions. I did my best. We're happy to take additional questions offline, so please contact us. We have a website. It's not hard to find, gemstone.umd.edu. You can see a full list of all of the current projects. So a lot of you had questions about, well, do these kinds of projects or those kinds of projects typically go over well in Gemstone? The answer to most of those questions is yes. Even if there's something that you wanted to work on that you don't see on the current pile is what it is because those students decided that's what they wanted to do. If you get together with a group of students and you pick something else and you find a faculty mentor to help you with it, well, then that becomes your project. So, but anyway, just to see the full spectrum of what we're up to, you can find that on our webpage, and we encourage you to go take a look.